Good morning. So I'd like to introduce myself and tell you a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today. My name is Faris Sabah. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Student Services at the Monterey County Office of Education. And I'm going to be being the administrator in charge for the next few days here at Millennium Charter High School. I'd like to also introduce Michelle Archuleta. She's also going to be working with me. She also works at the County Office of Education, and she'll also be on site to provide support. So just for you to know, you can call me Mr. Sabah or Dr. Sabah and Ms. Archuleta. And we're really here to provide support for you and just make sure that this wonderful school keeps moving forward. And we recognize the fact that we're going through a lot of changes, and we were both there at the board meeting on Friday. And this is a very intense time for all of you. And we want to make sure that you are aware that we're working really, really hard to support all of you and make sure that the school continues being an exemplary school as it has been. I was extremely impressed with what I saw in terms of student leadership. On Friday night, I saw Hunter Anderson. Hunter, where are you at? I'm sorry, it's not Anderson, huh? Hunter, what's your last name? Thompson, sorry. Hunter Thompson talking to the students about kind of recognizing, he called all the students together and talked about being respectful and recognizing how strongly people felt, but at the same time realizing that this was not a time for students to be disrespectful to anybody, and I really appreciated that. I was really impressed. My kids go to a charter school in Watsonville, and my wife and I are always looking for places where our kids can feel safe and can be themselves. And my conversations with parents, my conversations with students, and with staff and board members has really convinced me that the Millennium High School is that place. And I would be so proud if I could get my kids when they're old enough to be a part of this school. This school is very special, and you make it special. And our job is to support you and support the school to make sure we keep it special. And so today we're going to just be giving you some information, but more than anything we want to convey to you our commitment to make sure that Millennium High School continues being a great place and that you have the education that you deserve. I'd like to introduce the president of the board, Marilyn Abad Cardinelli, and she's going to be sharing a few words.
I want to make sure that you have enough time to ask some questions. I know we only have till 8:30, but know that this is not the only forum that we're going to be holding to hear your voices and your thoughts and your feelings. To create a safe place for you, not only a safe so that you don't get hurt, and bodily, but spiritually. We care deeply about that. The decisions that we have made, I hope you will one day come to understand that they were made in the best interest of this school, of you, to keep the school moving forward. I would also now, in the vein to make sure we hear your voices, is to introduce to you Mr. Spencer Critchley, who is also a member of the board.
Hi everybody, thanks very much for inviting us here this morning. This was actually the idea of a couple of students, I believe, who I was speaking with Friday night. And I want to echo how impressed I am with what I saw Friday night, as intense as it was. And Friday during the day, it's really, really impressive that you folks stayed orderly and respectful of everybody at the same time as you were true to your passions. We have some information we'd like to make sure you get today, but we also want to make sure we hear whatever questions that you may have. We certainly won't be able to answer all of them, I'm sure, but as Marilyn says, we'll continue to hold these kinds of events. Shall we start with, why don't we start with a couple of questions and we'll, yeah. Sure.
Uh, okay. I'm Carolina Pantoja, and I'm a senior here at Millennium. My question is, some students that are seniors are worried about their academic studies because due to family problems or some other really personal medical issues. Mr. Gray promised them that if they work hard and caught up with their work, they'll be able to graduate. But since everything that's happened, they're worried that now that he's gone, the promise that was made is gone. How are you guys going to deal with that?
Thank you. So this is something that is right now. I think all seniors are thinking about graduation, and in some cases maybe worried about making sure you have credits and so on. I think that in terms of making sure that all the students have, I see this as two things. One is one of their requirements is to make sure that students complete all the work, but we're going to do everything that we can to continue supporting students. And I'll give you an example of that. We were able to get a counselor here today to be able to support students. So she'll be here at 10 o'clock. Her name is Patty Pena. And so if students want to talk to somebody because they're feeling anxious or anything else, she's going to be available to work with students to be able to kind of talk through some of the concerns they have. But back specifically to your point, we want to make sure that students, we're going to do everything that we can to support students to make sure they get to graduation. And so anything that wherever students are at, we're going to find out where they are and make sure they get the support they need to graduate. And that's something that we're going to be working very hard to make sure that the graduation process and the actual graduation event, all those things are going to continue moving forward.
I see one back here. Yes.
Okay, so I'd like to begin by saying that while perhaps, I'm speaking for probably most of the student body, that perhaps that we don't agree with the decisions that you've made, we respect each of you individually as respectable adults and people that are older than us. And my question, I think that it's confusing to us as a student body to know that while you say that you are standing for the best interest of the students, and you have seen the distress that this has caused us, and so I don't understand how you can see that this is in the best interest of the students. I don't understand how you can't see that this is distressing, and it has destroyed some of us.
So we completely see how distressing this is. Believe me, it's heartbreaking to see what it's doing to many of you. And I think it might be helpful, perhaps if I could explain some stuff that might not be clear to you. The role of the board is as a layer of protection. There are multiple layers of protection for a school and other kinds of public bodies to make sure that you are served well. So the person who runs the school is the principal. The board hires and supervises the principal and watches the money and makes sure that things are done legally and works on policy, but it's the principal who runs the school. So he's kind of a layer of protection above the staff, and then there's the board as a layer of protection above the principal, and then there's a county office of education that's a layer of protection above us, and then there's layers that go all the way up through the state government, all to protect you, basically. As part of that, in supervising the principal, the law strictly prevents us from discussing any personnel details about his job and his job performance. So that's, in fact, to protect him or to protect any employee. Now, I know that you folks have been hearing stories about what's going on here with Mr. Gray. And I can tell you that a lot of the information you have heard is false. And I understand that it's deeply upsetting, that information, and you, in the absence of other information, it's understandable that you would assume that it's true. But you have heard some very upsetting information which is factually false. We are strictly forbidden by law to show you why it's false. So we're in a position where we're hearing how upset you are. We as people deeply wish we could share all the information we have to try to give you the full picture. But that would be a very, very serious violation of the law. And that's part of what's so painful all the way around here. I don't want to talk too long.
And also, I just wanted to add on to that. If for those of you who were there Friday night, you noticed that we went into closed session for almost 2 hours. And some people said, oh my God, that was awful. You were in there for 2 hours. And I actually said, that's a good thing. That is a great sign. If we had already had our minds made up, if we were just, done deal, we were opinionated, we would have been done in probably 5 minutes. But we sat there for 2 hours because we weighed this. Now I'm a parent, so I also weighed my, own emotion versus fact and law. But the role when you're in the boardroom is fact and law, and you have to follow that. So, and you'll find it, as you go into so many decisions in life, it's always that. Do I do what's that gut feeling, that emotion, or do I, weigh what is best for me in fact and law? And so that's what we had to discuss for 2 hours around the table. And not just, we didn't just debate with each other, we debated in our own heads with our own conflicting feelings, just like you said. The emotional part of it, that personal touch part of it, that the person, you like the person, but then there's factual things you have to consider too, and that's why it took us 2 hours. So I think I think that was a good sign that we really consciously went through the process.
And that was also the culmination of actually months. I want to make sure we get to some of the questions. I guess, I'm sorry I don't know names, but you on the left in the black, my left on the black t-shirt, you're right? Yeah, that's right, and then we'll get... Mm-hmm.
I would just like to ask, when will it be possible, if it is possible, to disclose this information that you say that is illegal to disclose at this time?
Right. Some of it may never be able to be disclosed because the privacy laws are so strict. And again, that is to protect employees from being abused by people who supervise them. Whatever information we can legally disclose, we're eager to disclose because we all, we're just folks like you. We believe in transparency. We believe in people having a right to know. And the group, yeah.
Since Mr. Gray is on administration leave, who will be taking in his place? He taught an AP English class in addition to principal.
So we've identified a sub that will be covering the AP English class, and I will be the acting administrator in charge of the school.
If I'm missing anybody, please, so it looks like the young lady here. Yep, you look familiar.
We spoke to you Friday night, and you said something about, I brought up the subject of putting a student on the board, and you said that you would consider it. How did we kickstart that process?
Right, so I'm not it sounds to me like under some circumstances that might be possible, but I think Nicole knows more than I do.
Yeah, and we'd have to check with the Office of Ed, but from a nonprofit side, see, we're in this weird situation where a public charter, so as a charter, we're a totally independent nonprofit, just like any of the charitable organizations in the community, like SPCA or the Girl Scouts or Boys and Girls Club. But because we're a public charter, we also have to follow some rules under the governmental agencies. But as I volunteered on many of my kids' organizations boards, but I'm like Mr. Gray in my job. I report to a board. So I actually am in a similar role as he is in an educational museum. And so I've seen this happen before. Now here's the deal. The California law changed a few years ago that everybody on the board has to be able to vote. You used to be able to appoint representatives like a student to have a special called non-voting role on the board. So you could be there, you could share your input, you could advise, but when there was a big vote, let's say on finances, you couldn't vote. Well, California state law changed that just a few years ago. So now every single member on the board has to vote. Well, a nonprofit board, all the representatives, have to make legal and financial decisions and votes. That means we are legally liable And as you know, you guys under 18, you can't take that liability on yourselves. You can't sign contracts. You guys, there's a lot you can't do without your parents. Now, there's two options here that we even just have thrown out. None of these have been discussed by the board formally, but we will take up this discussion in future board meetings. Two things. Allowing a student rep who is over the age of 18, so it would have to be a senior every year that had already had their birthday. That could be an option. The other option, and this is not an either or, this is an and. We could also, as of June or July, start to have an alumni rep because we'll have our first graduating class. So we could have, and that could be a recent alumni 10 years from now. It could be, you graduated 10 years ago. It would be an ongoing, always position, an alumni rep. That would just, whoever lives locally. After graduating.
So just in terms of the process, because I think that's what your question is, what would the process be? So the description of how board members are, kind of what the board looks like, how the selection of board members and so on is defined in the charter, which is a document that is the guiding document for pretty much, it's all the rules that describe this school and how it runs and whatnot. And so the charter, for changes to be made, such as some of the ones that we're talking about here, would require that the charter be modified, changed, to change that process. And that change would have to be agreed upon by the board with involvement from stakeholders and taken to the Monterey County Board of Education for approval. That would be the process. Those would be the steps that would need to be taken to be able to change how how many board members there are, how they're selected, and whatnot.
Hunter.
I just have a question. Excuse me. It's awesome to see you guys here today. This is really good to get the face-to-face kind of talk with some questions. I just want to know what the plans are for future communication this way from the student body to you guys. What are the steps in the process of making this happen more often?
Right. So students can come, actually, why don't I let you answer, because you probably understand the details more than I do.
Well, you heard, there's one of the list of the duties of the board is obviously to oversee the school. And one of the pieces of information in the do's and don'ts of boards is don't micromanage. Let your leadership lead. So now that you've spoken and we've listened, we're trying to find out ways in which we can and hopefully get more of this going on. You are the future leaders of this state. So if we can figure out ways to get you involved in this process and understanding it, there's so many types of organizations. We're a nonprofit board that is under a charter by the state of California, and we are authorized to be a charter school by the Monterey County Office of Education. We're not able to float anywhere. So at the risk of talking too long, I'm going to give it back to Spencer.
Okay. Well, some concrete ways that might work are, and again, this school is new and it's small. So we don't have the resources that a big school has. Actually, some schools, they actually have a staff person, maybe a secretary, someone in the office, who's a board liaison. They actually help between the staff and the board. They set up meetings, they set up town halls, things like that. We don't have to do this on our own. And so I'm right now asking for your help because as board members are just unpaid volunteers that give our time. I have 4 kids. I have a job. I know a lot of these guys have a lot of family time too. So we would love to be here all day long, but we have to find the best, most effective ways. So what I'm doing is I want to do that for you guys, but you don't have to wait for us to do it. So if you guys want to form, maybe empower your student council or create your own types of clubs, council, what have you, where you would meet on a regular basis, generate ideas, and then come to the board and say, hey, we'd like, we want to make a special presentation to the board, every other board meeting, or what have you, or we're proposing this town hall, let's invite the board to it. Go ahead, because we really are going to be talking about that and trying to answer your question, but like I said, we're trying to juggle it in as volunteers as well. Like, figure that out. So we're willing to hear your ideas as well.
And I think also there might be a question behind that question, which I think is, how do students have an influence on what happens at the school? Is that right? So I think it's helpful to understand the best way to do that. And the board is certainly, you're welcome certainly to come to board meetings and to communicate with the board and all of that. But if your goal is to have an influence on what happens at the school, that may or may not be the best thing to do. So part of what we'll do is help people understand the structure so they know where to exert influence most effectively. Because I think, as several people have said, the board's job is not really to run the school, that's the principal's job. And so by forming committees and clubs, you can actually have a lot more hands-on influence on things that happen. And the board is more where you go when you want to talk about overall policy, like curriculum policy and that sort of stuff. Normally, the functioning of a board is pretty routine and actually kind of boring. It's important, but boring. So just, as I say, if that's the real goal, we also want to help you understand how to have influence on the way things go in the school. Yeah, hope I haven't missed anybody, but here? Oh, can I get to you in one moment? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Miguel Garcia Sr. This question is for Marilyn. We've tried to contact you before about involvement, but we've received no response. Why is this time any different?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't. I apologize for that.
Okay, but what was the reason for that delay?
There was no intention in delaying it. I'm trying to think back on how you tried to contact me. And so if you send it on email, it could have, I have 5 emails. I'm not making excuses, but I'm just saying I apologize for that, and I will not do it. Anyone?
For future reference, what's the best way to contact you?
You know, I had always relied on the leadership to tell me. Okay? And so that would be brought to my attention. So I'm going to just have to send me an email. In this case, we're in this situation, to Marilyn at millenniumcharter.org.
Yeah, and what Marilyn was, and what Marilyn was just saying was normally the way this works is communications to the board go through the principal, because most of these communications are, not as dramatic as the ones we're talking about today.
And I do want to also convey that what you're hearing from the board and from the County Office of Ed and my current role as acting administrator is we are committed to making more forums available for you to communicate how you're feeling and how you can help guide the direction of the school. And that means that we are going to be as responsive as possible. And it's maybe we've done things differently in the past, but you're gonna see a commitment to and a responsiveness that shows that we're really that we're really listening to what you want us to hear. And so I'm going to be available I will collect anything and everything that's brought to me and organize it and present it to the board members at the board meeting. I see that as part of my role as acting administrator, and so and also, of course, you can communicate directly with Marilyn as the president of the board.
And, I'm sorry, I don't know which of you raised your hand first. Does either of you know?
Let her go ahead.
Okay. Would you like?
We have time.
Well,
Okay. I don't even need the mic. Okay, so question for Nicole. So our parent rep, Kevin Waddy, what is his role on the board? Thank you.
Okay, Kevin Waddy, as you may know, was put on as a parent rep this fall, I think. And that was because there's a permanent position, always a standing position for a parent rep on our board. Now, I came on the board before that. I'm a parent, but I wasn't the official parent rep. I also work in the arts, so I was there. Yes, I'm a parent, but I was there to share some professional insight. So the role of a parent rep, or even if we put a student or an alumni rep, is to be a regular board member, to serve as a board member, but when you're there serving, to think of your own experience in that role. So Kevin's role is to join the board, to be an active working board member. The board works together on all issues, but when he's there thinking of how what's the best thing for the school in this vote or that vote, is to think, okay, I'm a parent. I have kids. I care about my kids. I care about my kids' education. What would I want to see for my kids here? So it's for him to be an active board member while filtering it through, okay, I'm a parent here. And that's my primary concern. I think there was some misunderstanding that he is to represent one voice of the parents. But as you know, even among all your friends, there's no one voice of the students. There is no one way of operating in whatever subgroup you put yourself into. When you're in a meeting, you're thinking using your values and those things important to you. And as a parent, that's your kids' education. So that was it. It was to make sure that at least one person, see, I was there just kind of accidentally as a parent, to always make sure there's at least one person who's thinking about their kids' friends, and all the other kids.
And your question.
So as you are elected to your district, will there be expected changes within how we function as a school?
So the question was, will there be any changes in how we function as a school?
The goal really is to keep things moving forward, which means really trying to minimize additional changes unless we find something that really needs to be changed. So I know that's not a clear answer for you, but no, the goal is not to be restructuring or making any dramatic changes. Really, the goal is to make sure that students feel that we have a stable, safe place for them. That's what we're trying to do this week. Yeah.
Is there somebody who's been waiting a long time? Is it you? Okay. Since you're here, what?
So going back to putting a student on the board, why is it that we can have a student on the board but not somebody 10 times more intelligent like one of our teachers?
Yeah, this is one of the big questions. I'm glad you asked that question. And this is one of the ones where there's some false information circulating. I think philosophically we'd be delighted. I think that's, I can speak for my fellow board members, that personally we'd be delighted to have a teacher representative on the board. The problem is, Nicole referred to this change in California law that happened a few years ago. And if you put a teacher on the board of a school, that teacher is in the position of supervising their boss. So the principal is the teacher's boss, but the board is the principal's boss. So one of the big problems is the teacher now, as I say, is supervising their boss. Imagine the situation if that teacher needs to be discussed because there's something going wrong with their performance. And the teacher is their boss's boss. Or we need to discuss another teacher's performance, and that's a good friend and colleague of that teacher. The opportunities for conflict of interest are quite serious. Now, one solution to that is to have a teacher on the board, but they're not allowed to vote in order to avoid those conflicts of interest. Unfortunately, that's no longer legal. It's not legal to have non-voting members of the board. So that's the situation we're in. It was not in the charter of the school, and it would not work basically to serve your interest best, and it would, one of the solutions is actually illegal. And perhaps.
Well, you know what? I apologize that we can't get to you. We were just conversing here. We picked today to have this assembly because both campuses are here. We'll take a look at possibly, do you feel that you would like to continue this kind of dialogue throughout the year? So I know that your assembly time now, you would have performances, you would be sharing lots of stuff, but if you feel that it's more important to do this on Monday's assembly when everybody's here, I will certainly make it a recommendation, and I'm sure Ferris will do that. But I don't want to take away from the rest of the schedule in an effort to keep things the way it has been set. We don't want to change any of that. So I'm going to give it to Ferris.
So we'd like to, so we do have to finish up, but I know that the questions are going to continue. My email address is fsabah@millenniumcharterhighschool.org. Fsabah, F-S-A-B-B-A-H. Hope I spelled it right. So I would like you to, I'm also going to be available to talk with you and be able to converse with you throughout the day. I'm going to be going through all the classes, and I'll be able to continue the conversation as much as I can in every class today. And we are going to do everything that we can to give you more opportunities to be able to ask questions, share your points of view, and also, as much as we can, provide you information to respond to that. But I also think that this is an opportunity, as difficult as it is, this is an opportunity for you to continue taking on a leadership role in guiding the direction of the school. And I think that's what we're hearing really clearly, is that not only do you want to know what's going on, but you want to be part of the direction for changes and improvements. And we hear that loud and clear. We're going to ask you at this point to go on to your next period, and we want to thank you for your participation.